I killed more plants with water than any drought ever could. For 20 years, I watered my garden every single day. And for 20 years, I watched perfectly healthy flowers wilt, rot, and die. I blamed the soil. I blamed the seeds. I blamed the weather. It never once occurred to me that I was the problem. I'm 74 years old now. I've been gardening for 51 years. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that how you water your garden matters more than what you plant in it, more than the fertilizer you use, more than the quality of your soil. Get watering wrong, and nothing else you do will save your plants. Here's what took me decades to understand. Most of what we believe about watering is either incomplete or flat out wrong. The advice your grandmother gave you, the tips on the back of seed packets, even what some garden centers tell you. Much of it leads to weak plants, shallow roots, fungal disease, and wasted water. I made every one of these mistakes, some of them for years before I figured out what was going wrong. Today I'm sharing the 10 worst watering mistakes I made over half a century of gardening, ranked from bad to absolutely devastating. And the mistake at number 1, I did it religiously for 15 years, convinced I was doing the right thing. It was silently killing my garden the entire time. Number 10, watering on a rigid schedule regardless of conditions. For years I watered every Tuesday and Friday, rain or shine. Cool days, hot days, it didn't matter. Tuesday and Friday were watering days, and I stuck to them like clockwork. I thought consistency was the key. It's not. Plants don't operate on a human calendar. Their water needs change constantly based on temperature, humidity, wind, cloud cover, and the stage of growth they're in. A hot, windy day in July can dry out your soil in hours. A cool, overcast day in September might leave the ground moist for a week. When I watered on my rigid schedule, I was overwatering after rainy periods and underwatering during hot stretches. Both cause damage. And here's what I missed for years. The damage from overwatering looks almost identical to underwatering damage. Wilting leaves, yellowing, poor growth. So when my overwatered plants wilted, I assumed they needed more water. I gave them more, and they got worse. The fix is simple, but requires you to pay attention. Stick your finger 2 inches into the soil. If it's dry at that depth, water. If it's still moist, wait. Your finger is more accurate than any watering schedule you'll ever create. I check my soil every morning now. Some weeks I water 3 times, some weeks once. My plants are healthier than ever because I stopped following a calendar and started following the soil. Number 9, treating every plant the same. I used to walk through my garden with a hose and give every single plant the same amount of water. Roses got the same as lavender. Tomatoes got the same as succulents. Daylilies got the same as blanket flowers. This is like feeding a toddler and an adult the same portion. It makes no sense when you think about it, but I did it for years without thinking. Different plants have dramatically different water requirements. Some plants, like lavender, Russian sage, and blanket flower, actually perform better when kept on the dry side. Blanket flower blooms twice as heavily in poor, dry soil compared to rich, moist soil. When I was giving it the same water as my roses, I was reducing its bloom without realizing it. Meanwhile, my hydrangeas were getting the same water as my drought-tolerant coneflowers. The hydrangeas needed more, the coneflowers needed less. By watering everything equally, I was stressing both groups in opposite directions. What I do now is group plants by water needs. Thirsty plants go together in one area. Drought-tolerant plants go together in another. This way, I can give each zone exactly what it needs. My water bill dropped by nearly 40% when I started doing this, and every single plant looked dramatically better within one growing season. Number 8, watering the leaves instead of the roots. For years I stood in my garden and sprayed water from above, like a human sprinkler system, the water droplets catching the sunlight, the leaves glistening. It felt nurturing. I was actually doing damage. Plants absorb water through their roots, not their leaves. When you spray from above, a significant amount never reaches the soil. It sits on the foliage and evaporates, especially on hot, sunny days. You think you've watered thoroughly, but half the water is gone before it touches the ground. But the bigger problem is disease. Water sitting on plant leaves creates the perfect environment for fungal infections. Powdery mildew, black spot on roses, late blight on tomatoes. These diseases need prolonged moisture on leaves to take hold. Every time I sprayed from above, I was rolling out a welcome mat for fungal pathogens. The day I switched to watering at the base of my plants changed everything. I use a simple watering wand now, directing the stream right at the soil. Since I made this change, my rose problems with black spot decreased dramatically. My tomatoes stopped getting those ugly brown spots on their lower leaves. One simple adjustment and half my disease problems disappeared. If you want to take it further, drip irrigation is the most efficient method. It delivers water directly to the root zone. I installed a simple drip system in my vegetable garden 8 years ago. It cost me less than I was spending on fungicide every season. Number 7. Shallow, frequent watering. This kept me trapped in high-maintenance gardening for over a decade. I used to water every single day, giving each area a quick 5 to 10 minute spray. The surface looked wet. I assumed everything was fine. Underneath that wet surface, my plants were dying of thirst. When you water lightly and frequently, the moisture only penetrates the top inch or two of soil. The deeper layers stay bone dry. And here's what happens. The roots stay shallow. They cluster near the top because that's where the moisture is. This creates a vicious cycle. Shallow roots mean the plant can only access surface moisture. Surface moisture evaporates quickly in summer. The plant wilts. You water again. The roots stay shallow. You become a slave to daily watering, and your plants are still constantly stressed. Deep watering breaks this cycle entirely. Instead of 5 minutes every day, I now water deeply once or twice a week. I let the water soak in for at least 30 minutes, penetrating 6 to 8 inches deep. The transformation was remarkable. It took about 3 weeks. As the roots grew deeper, my plants became visibly stronger. They stopped wilting during afternoon heat. They survived dry spells that would have devastated them before. Their stems were thicker. Their flowers were larger. And I was doing less work, not more. The key is to water slowly. If you blast the ground with a high-pressure hose, the water runs off. It doesn't penetrate. You need a slow, steady stream or a soaker hose that lets water seep in gradually. Patience is the tool no one talks about. Number 6. Ignoring soil type completely. I gardened in the same house for 30 years and never once tested my soil or thought about what type it was. Clay, sandy, loam. I had no idea, and I didn't think it mattered. Your soil type determines how water behaves in your garden. Sandy soil drains fast. Water passes through it like a sieve. If you water sandy soil the way you'd water clay, the water is gone before plants can use it. Clay soil holds water tenaciously, absorbs slowly, and drains slowly. If you water clay the same way you water sandy soil, you end up with waterlogged conditions that cause root rot. I learned this when I moved to a property with heavy clay after gardening in sandy loam for decades. I kept my same watering habits. Within the first summer, I lost 4 established plants to root rot. An old gardener friend picked up a handful of soil, squeezed it, and said, "You've got clay. You're drowning your plants. Test your soil in 5 minutes. Squeeze a handful of moist soil. If it holds together tightly and feels slick, that's clay. Falls apart immediately, sandy, holds together loosely, and crumbles when you poke it. That's loam, the ideal. Knowing this one thing will save you years of frustration." Number 5. Watering at the worst possible time of day. I used to water my garden in the evening. The sun going down, air cooling, less evaporation, I figured. Logically, it seemed perfect. Biologically, it was terrible. When you water in the evening, moisture sits on the soil surface and on any wet foliage all through the night. No sun to dry things out. Temperature drops, humidity rises. You've created ideal conditions for fungal diseases. Fungal spores need prolonged wetness to germinate. When leaves and soil stay wet for 8 to 12 hours overnight, those spores have more than enough time to establish infection. I had chronic problems with powdery mildew on my phlox and bee balm. Black spot ravaged my roses every season. I tried every fungicide available. Nothing worked consistently. Then I switched to morning watering. Between 6 and 8 in the morning, the leaves had all day to dry in the sun and breeze. Within a single season, my fungal problems were cut in half. By the second year, nearly gone. Morning watering is also more efficient. The soil is cool, so it absorbs better. Evaporation is lower, and plants are gearing up for their most active photosynthesis period. If mornings are impossible, water in the late afternoon, at least 4 hours before sunset. The goal is to give foliage time to dry before nightfall. But morning is best. Number 4. Never mulching around plants. I'm including this because mulch has more to do with watering than most gardeners realize. For 15 years, I didn't mulch. I thought it was purely cosmetic, something that made beds look tidy. Bare soil exposed to sun and wind loses moisture at an astonishing rate. On a hot summer day, the top 2 inches of unmulched soil can dry out completely by noon. All that water you applied in the morning, gone before your plants use it. A 2 to 3 inch layer of organic mulch, shredded bark, straw, wood chips, or shredded leaves acts as a protective blanket, blocks sunlight, reduces wind exposure, moderates temperature. When I finally started mulching consistently, I cut my watering frequency by roughly a third. Plants that needed water 3 times a week only needed it twice. And as a bonus, the mulch broke down over time and improved my soil structure. One important detail: keep mulch a few inches away from plant stems and tree trunks. Mulch piled against a stem creates moisture that causes rot. I lost a young hydrangea this way. I buried the base in mulch thinking I was protecting it. The constant moisture rotted the stem at ground level. Create a small gap, a mulch donut, not a mulch volcano. Number 3. Forgetting to water newly planted plants properly. There's a critical window in every plant's life that determines whether it thrives or struggles for years. The first growing season after planting. I've botched it more times than I want to admit. A newly planted perennial or shrub has a tiny root ball compared to what it will develop. The surrounding soil might be moist, but if the root ball itself dries out, the plant can't access any of that moisture. This is why newly planted things wilt even when the surrounding ground is wet. For the first week after planting, water daily. I know I just spent time explaining why daily watering is usually bad. This is the exception. Newly transplanted roots need consistent moisture to recover from shock. After the first week, water every 2 to 3 days for the next month. Then transition to deep watering once or twice a week. I lost dozens of plants because I planted them and immediately put them on my regular schedule. Their roots hadn't grown into the surrounding soil yet. They were sitting in a dry pocket while the garden around them looked moist. Here's a test I use now. After planting, push your finger into the root ball itself, not the soil around it. If the root ball is dry, water more. The surrounding soil being wet means nothing to a new plant if its actual roots are bone dry. Number 2, not adjusting watering through the seasons. I watered the same way in April as I did in August. Same amount, same frequency. 12 months a year, identical. This is remarkably common and remarkably damaging. Your garden's water needs shift dramatically through the year. In early spring, when temperatures are cool and rainfall is usually adequate, most plants need little supplemental water. By midsummer, everything changes. Temperatures soar, humidity drops, A hot July day can require 2 to 3 times the water of a mild April day. Then fall arrives. Growth slows. Water needs decrease again. When I watered identically all year, I was overwatering in spring and underwatering in summer. The spring overwatering caused root problems. Then summer underwatering stressed already compromised plants. A 1-2 punch that left my garden exhausted by August every year. Now I think in seasonal phases. Spring is minimal. Early summer ramps up. Midsummer is peak watering. Late summer tapers. Fall is minimal. During heat waves, I increase the frequency of deep watering, not shallow daily watering, more frequent deep watering. There's a significant difference, and your plants know it. Number 1, watering every single day with small amounts. This is the big one, the mistake I made for 15 years while believing I was the most attentive gardener on my street. Every morning, without fail, I was out there with my hose, giving every plant a gentle drink. 5 minutes here, 3 minutes there. A little splash for the roses, a quick spray for the perennials. I was dedicated, I was consistent, and I was systematically weakening every plant in my garden. Daily light watering is the single most destructive watering habit a gardener can develop. After 51 years, I stand behind that completely. Here's why. Every day you add a small amount of water to the surface. It penetrates maybe an inch, maybe 2 on a good day. The roots learn that water is always available right at the surface, so they stay there. A dense, shallow mat of roots in the top 2 inches of soil. Now it's July, 95 degrees. The sun is relentless. That top 2 inches dries out in hours, even with morning watering. Your plants, with their pathetically shallow root systems, have 0 reserves. They wilt by noon. They look terrible by 3. You come home, see them wilting, and water again. Tomorrow, the same cycle repeats. Meanwhile, your neighbor, who only waters twice a week but does so deeply, has plants with roots reaching 8, 10, even 12 inches into the ground. Her plants look unfazed at noon, still strong at 3. They don't even notice the heat because their roots are accessing deep moisture that hasn't dried out. Her garden looks better with less effort. Yours looks worse despite daily attention. I discovered this during a 2-week vacation. I expected devastation when I returned. Some plants were stressed, but the ones in a section where the soil naturally held moisture longer, they were fine, better than fine, healthier than the plants I'd been pampering daily. That was the moment I started questioning everything I knew about watering. It took 2 full seasons to retrain my garden after switching from daily light watering to weekly deep watering. The first weeks were nerve-wracking. I watched closely, fighting the urge to grab the hose. Some plants showed mild stress, but within a month, the difference was visible. Stronger stems, deeper green foliage, more flowers. By the second year, my garden was unrecognizable, better in every measurable way, with less than half the watering I'd been doing before. If you take nothing else from this video, take this. Water deeply, water less often. Let the soil dry slightly between waterings. Your plants will develop the deep root systems they need to survive heat, drought, and stress. They'll be stronger, they'll bloom more, they'll live longer, and you'll spend less time with a hose in your hand. After 51 years in the garden, my knees ache and my back protests if I bend over too long. But my garden has never been healthier, not because I found some magic fertilizer or secret plant variety, because I finally learned how to water properly. It took me 20 years of killing plants before I started figuring it out. But the lesson is simple enough that you can apply it today. Stop watering a little bit every day. Start watering a lot, less often. Pay attention to your soil. Pay attention to the season. Water the roots, not the leaves. And for goodness sake, water in the morning. Your plants will thank you. Your water bill will thank you. And your back will definitely thank you.